So CoryXKenshin is back in the drama sphere following a pretty hostile set of videos released by a friend, in air quotes, of his by the name of MavAttack. Now, this guy, MavAttack, a former friend of the huge streamer Cory Kenshin, is being hit with a cease and desist. Cory Kenshin's team sent me a cease and desist, full context.
Legal counsel representing Cory Kenshin sent me a cease and desist letter regarding content I published that discussed allegations and claims made by multiple individuals. In this video, I am going to explain what I received, how I understood it, what followed, and where I stand now.
This is in regard to this video from 6 months ago, CoryXKenshin's alleged victims, a 51-minute video where he goes through a bunch of victims of CoryXKenshin, which boils down to a bunch of anonymous users and some pretty horrific, vile accusations with zero evidence. And that is the problem when you are a content creator who covers things such as myself. I am someone who covers very, very insane allegations and accusations, and almost every time I do, I tell my viewers, you guys, to take them with a grain of salt. Always try to see the good, the bad, every side of a situation before you immediately jump to someone being like one of the worst people alive, right? Before jumping to the conclusion that someone, a creator you like, is possibly like a abuser or something like that, right? Now, about a year ago, I ended up covering some of these allegations that came out about Cory Kenshin, specifically involving a woman by the name of Panda Ninja, who made some pretty vile allegations against Cory, accusing him of things like SA, making jokes and allusions to possibly, taking advantage of her in her sleep. And it all ended up coming out that she was being dramatic for clicks. She basically ended up dropping something saying like, oh, she didn't say that. Like, other people were making stuff up, blah, blah, blah. And she pretty much completely discredited her own allegations, discredited her own self, right? No one was going to take this person serious when they weren't even accurate and able to present a story with accurate information.
This was literally not intended to attack or have attacks towards Cory. So please stop the essay allegations towards him. That is not true, and that's not what I said. There was no cheating or pregnancy. There was no editing of messages. Those were literally rumors that they made you guys believe because they were trying to bring traction to their content. Oh.
And so a lot of people were looking at this MavAttack guy's content already kind of annoyed at what we were looking at, because you had these uncredible sources like the Panda Ninja person, as well as 40 minutes of other victims that were not willing to come forward, were not willing to, provide any sort of evidence or anything worthwhile in regards to, what accusations were being made, which has caused, Cory Kenshin to send this guy a cease and desist.
Before I get into any of that, I want to be clear. This is not a call for anyone to harass, pressure, threaten, investigate, spam, or contact anybody involved. I do not want my audience carrying anger on my behalf. I do not want this to become a pile-on. This is a serious situation involving real people, a former friendship, public statements, private experiences, disputed materials, and formal legal correspondence. So I am approaching it with restraint. This is not a takedown. This is not a victory lap, and it is not me asking anyone to choose a side. This is me explaining what I received, what I reviewed, how I understood the situation at the time, and why I am choosing a more careful public response now. I am not presenting myself as a court. I am not asking the internet to decide anyone's life, and I am not claiming to know every private fact, every private motive, or everything that may have happened outside of what I personally experienced, reviewed, documented, or was directly informed of. What I can speak to is my own experience.
So unfortunately, MavAttack's video already kind of loses its footing when you realize what this original video he created is. Cory Kenshin's alleged victims, which is basically a 50-minute video of people's opinions in like self-written Google Docs and letters about experiences that they had with Cory Kenshin. Now, obviously, that's how a lot of situations are going to be, right? If you have a bad relationship, a lot of it's going to come down to you like showing messages, showing context of like how this relationship went down. The problem is if you were to like tell a YouTuber this information, they would probably not try to like present, allegations like this as if they were factual to try to discredit a former friend, because again, these are just experiences. And someone like Panda Ninja, as I referenced, proved that their word was not credible, proved that they were simply doing this with a vendetta because they were a little upset that their relationship with Cory Kenshin did not end the way they wanted to. It boiled down to Cory Kenshin essentially being a fuckboy who did not want to be in a relationship with this woman, but he was like more than willing to, do all the dating stuff, do all the like sexual stuff, but without the relationship tag, the boyfriend-girlfriend tag. And she was pretty upset about that, so she ran to the internet to try to accuse him of being this horrific, evil, abusing monster. And the same exact things are mentioned in this video. It's 50 minutes of Cory basically being a fuckboy to a bunch of different women, which does not make someone a predator. It does not make someone a like horrific abuser. And that's kind of what the whole like main point boils down to, is if you're going to present 50 minutes of people's opinions and 50 minutes of just people's experiences they had with a fuckboy as if this guy's like some horrible monster who needs to be taken down, I feel like you're going to set yourself into a precedent where if you get hit with a cease and desist, luckily that's all you're getting hit with, you should probably shut up and delete those videos because you didn't really have anything to stand by.
On January 30th, 2026, I received a cease and desist letter by email from legal counsel representing Cory Kenshin. I am not going to display private contact information, legal addresses, signatures, or unnecessary identifying details. I am also not treating this video like a legal proceeding. A cease and desist letter is not a court ruling, and discussing one online does not resolve the dispute. But the correspondence is part of the reason this video exists, so I believe it is important to explain its general substance. The letter disputes the accuracy, interpretation, and presentation of portions of my previous content. It states that Cory denies the categories of misconduct discussed in the January 5th, 2026 video and characterizes the interactions at issue as consensual adult interactions. The correspondence argues that private conduct was selectively reframed in a materially misleading way. It also challenges how I interpreted and presented certain screenshots and messages, particularly my previous references to fabrication, Photoshop, or AI. The letter argues that those conclusions were made without sufficient technical verification and says that the disputed materials refuted earlier accusations rather than supporting them. It characterizes my decision to speak publicly as being motivated by profit and attention, argues that attributing statements to other people does not remove responsibility for publishing them, claims that the publications caused reputational harm, and raises a separate copyright concern regarding the use of video content. The letter requests the removal of specific content, a public retraction or correction of certain statements, and preservation of materials connected to the dispute. It asks for written confirmation within 7 business days and states that continued publication of material it considers false or misleading would further support its position. It also says that Cory would prefer to avoid litigation but will enforce his rights if necessary.
So, in other words, Cory Kenshin just kind of wants this dude to shut up, right? The main problem with this kind of situation is the fact that MavAttack was Cory Kenshin's friend, so unfortunately, it gives a bit of credibility to these allegations. Even though I think that they're false, given one of the people he decided to showcase was Panda Ninja, a liar, some people may not think that. They may say, wow, this guy's like really good friends with Cory Kenshin. Why would he lie about this kind of stuff? That's kind of one of the main things this cease and desist is claiming, right? They want him to just stop talking about it, delete the stuff that almost all people just kind of think is bogus, right? When you're a content creator, you're going to run into these issues, of course, where there are creators who take advantage or use their power to try to silence people. And this is not one of those situations. This is a situation where someone like MavAttack platformed just pure trash, pure slop. and tries to say, oh, well, it's not me saying this stuff. I'm just the 100,000 subscriber YouTuber platforming these anonymous allegations. That's the problem. If I want to cover some serious allegations, let's say about Mr. Beast, I'm going to cite my source and give my commentary and thoughts on this situation. I'm not just going to cover some anonymous allegation and platform it as if like what I'm reading is just like, oh guys, do what you want with this information. Like, no, there's a reason why other people who covered these allegations when they happened aren't being hit with cease and desists. My video got hundreds of thousands of views and nobody hit me with a cease and desist because I analyzed the content in a fair lens. I didn't just accuse, Cory Kenshin of being this horrible person without any type of pushback on the allegations that were being presented.
After the legal correspondence, Cory called me. I am not going to play the call or quote it line by line. The conversation concerned the dispute, prior events, and our history. I took time to process that conversation as part of deciding how to move forward. Because the call came after the legal correspondence and involved our prior history, I experienced it as serious and emotionally heavy. I am not assigning legal meaning or private intent to what was said, and I am not presenting my reaction to the call as proof of anyone's intent or wrongdoing. Cory may remember or understand that conversation differently. That is why I am keeping the description general, preserving the relevant material, and limiting what I say publicly. At that point, a former friendship, public statements, private communications, and formal legal correspondence had all become part of the same dispute. That was what I was trying to process. But this is also about something larger than one letter. It is about what happens when creators, communities, allegations, disputes, materials, and former friendships collide in public. I understand why people struggle with situations like this. When someone follows a creator for years, there can be trust there. There can be a real sense of connection, even if that connection is different from a private friendship. People spend years watching someone's work. They grow up with them. They may feel that person has been part of their life in some way. So when serious information or conflict becomes public, people don't always know what to do with it. Online, people often move quickly in every direction. Some defend immediately, some condemn immediately, some dismiss everything, some accept everything. And some people are simply trying to make sense of conflicting public accounts involving someone they have watched for years. I understand that. My experience is different because there was also a real friendship and years of shared history involved. I am not asking anyone to blindly believe me. I am also not asking anyone to blindly defend anyone else. Whether you support me, support him, feel conflicted, or are simply trying to understand, I am not asking you to attack anybody. I am asking people to listen carefully, think critically, and remember that serious situations rarely fit cleanly into internet narratives.
Regardless of what Cory Kenshin's fans do, you might think they're like a ravaged, savage mob of people who are defend him tooth and nail through everything. There is nothing in these allegations that was worth making a video trying to essentially destroy his career. Again, this video was made 6 months ago. The video I made that basically debunked this Panda Ninja person was 11 months ago. So this guy basically took 6 months to look at these horrific allegations that had nothing backing them, that were not reliable, were not even like accurate or realistic, and decided to compile them into a 50-minute video trying to ruin this person's career. I would say that someone has every right to hit you with a cease and desist, and that's luckily all they're trying to do. Mind you, this man has made multiple videos about Cory Kenshin. Like, he's like obsessed with him, right? And that's coming from some guy who's made like dozens of videos on Mr. Beast. Kind of ironic. Cory Kenshin's victims, addressing the allegations of Cory fans, the hidden life of Cory Kenshin, and it's that Panda Ninja woman, right? Why Cory Kenshin and I are no longer friends. Like, bro, your channel is dead, right? That's coming from me, whose channel is also dead. And it seems like he's latching on to this Cory Kenshin thing so much, when in reality, you had nothing there. You were pretty upset that your fan or your friend parted ways with you and your career died. Yes, Cory can be a fuckboy. You as a man can say to another man, hey bro, let's not be a fuckboy, that's not a good idea. But to try to make a video and multiple videos trying to ruin this person's career, platforming liars and people who lie about SA and abuse, you are just kind of like a piece of shit, bro.
There has to be room for a middle ground. People should be able to speak about their experiences and concerns without pretending they are judges. People who are accused or criticized should be able to respond and dispute what is being said without every disagreement becoming destructive. Communities should be able to process difficult information without directing harm toward anyone involved. And disagreement should never become cruelty. That is the kind of conversation I want this video to be part of. I want to explain what happened, clarify what I am and am not saying, and keep my public response contained. Being careful does not mean erasing your own experience. Choosing restraint does not mean pretending that nothing mattered. And wanting peace does not mean you are no longer allowed to explain why something affected you. I can care about the harm and stress this situation has created for the people involved. I can care about how it has affected people who support me, people who support him, and people who are simply trying to understand. And I can still say that I had reasons for speaking, that the legal correspondence changed the situation, and that the events that followed mattered to me. I can say those things without claiming to know anyone's private intent and without adding more unnecessary harm.
And that's pretty much the rest of his video. It seems as though he's trying to now play the victim, as though I'm just this guy who is trying to help victims who wanted to get their word out there, blah, 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 with the most horrific allegations that can ruin a man's life. Mind you, a man that is very adamant on not wanting to be a part of internet drama. Cory Kenshin to this day, still has not even responded to all these allegations. He just wants other people, other friends, former friends, to stop yapping about him and stop presenting these horrific allegations as if they were factual or not providing any type of pushback, right? MavAttack here is not a victim of anything. He is a person from a friendship that failed who seems to be living in this bubble where he's now trying to call out this evil guy. And now that he's hit with some type of legal pushback, this cease and desist, he wants to go about it smart. He doesn't want to start any more drama. He doesn't want there to be any bad blah, 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 bad blood, all this other nonsense, which is just such a cope, such a scapegoat for once again trying to make it seem as though Cory Kenshin is this bad guy trying to sue him or cease and desist him for no reason whatsoever, for just a guy making a video covering some allegations, which couldn't be further from the truth. Now, as always, I appreciate you guys watching the video. I will link the full video by MavAttack down below if you want to watch it, but I also want you guys to check out, this Panda Ninja saga. See why I think that this woman is completely ridiculous and completely ruined the credibility of anyone else who pushed allegations about Cory Kenshin. Thank you for watching. Bye.